All right, good evening. Like to call to order the January 21st meeting of the MRH Board of Education. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have to all aspire to learn it in sign language for future meeting. Kat, I know we have some comments that have been submitted for public forum this evening, so we'll move on to this portion of the agenda. Just reminding community members that we are certainly glad to hear from them in this forum, but they are always welcome to contact us via email or to seek us out in other forums if there are more immediate questions and concerns. We certainly will not be able to answer in real time all of the items that are shared, but certainly appreciate the input. I will move over to public comment.
Thank you, Katie. So our first comment this evening is from Emily Lemons Ewing. The comment reads, "Dear school board members and administrators, I do not feel it is safe for my child to return to in-person classes. I could list reasons why, but ultimately each family has to make this decision for themselves. We chose Virtual Academy in the fall and found schools PLP to be developmentally inappropriate for ECC age kids. We switched to tiers and my daughter is now happy and learning in tier 3. If schools are opened, there will be nowhere for her to go. We are not comfortable sending her to school, and schools PLP is in no way similar to or a substitute for tier 3. Please consider remaining in tier 3 and significantly expanding in-person interventions for those who need them, or allowing students to choose to continue in tier 3 when schools are opened. Thank you for your hard work and concern for all during these challenging times." The next comment is from Chris Starkey. The comment reads, "The mission of the Maplewood Richmond Heights School District is to inspire and prepare students as leaders, scholars, stewards, and citizens for a diverse and changing world. As a parent of a high school student, I believe MRH is not delivering on its mission. I plead to this school board to consider the best interests of our community's children and bring them back to a safe school environment so we can pick up where we left off last March. Thank you." The next comment comes from John Sauter. The comment reads, "My daughter needs to return to in-person learning as soon as possible. I was supportive of your early hesitation to send children to school when there was so little information on which to base your decision. I believe that we now know that reasonable precautions can be taken, and as long as protocols are followed, we can minimize the spread of the coronavirus. The damage to our children, and more selfishly to our parents, is evident and growing. I believe it would be irresponsible to not attempt to lessen that damage at this point." The next comment is from Jacqueline Fiber. The comment reads, "Since September, my son has lost 1/3 of his class. In-person school is a major resource of childcare, academic progress, socialization. Most cannot continue financially and practically to stay home behind unfounded cries of safety concerns for reopening. Children who are suffering academically, those with disabilities, and teachers who are uncomfortable teaching half a class are feeling pushed out. There has been complete silence and lack of accountability by the board regarding the loss and hardships for these families. Families are losing jobs, homes, and are struggling socially and financially to have their kids at home. The ethics of Black Lives Matter and Essential Heroes yard signs means honoring equity and education for all of our children. Please start rebuilding our community as one that supports students who need full-time, in-person school. The next comment is from Aubrey Rhinesmith. The comment reads, "The decision made on Thursday this week rocked our family. I understand the restraints the state has placed on how trapped you are in this decision. Please know the risk is not over. Please know precautions are not enough. Wednesday this week, a 16-year-old high school student of mine died from COVID complications. When I heard the decision after that day, I knew the best choice for my child was a virtual academy. We do not have enough to pay for childcare for a 2-year-old, and we are a working household that cannot function on this hybrid model. My years teaching taught me that relationships are the foundation of education. I am now forced to break the relationship my 3rd grader has formed. I was even told he may not have the same teacher in 4th grade. Why does this feel like a punishment? Why was there not an option to use a webcam?" And the final comment this evening comes from Amy Brehan. The comment reads, "Has the school board seen this latest study, and does it impact the board's decision to move to Tier 2? If not, why not? This submission includes a link to a news article titled, 'Largest COVID-19 Contact Tracing Study to Date Finds Children Key to Spread, Evidence of Super Spreaders.' It was written by Morgan Kelly from Princeton Environmental Institute on September 30th, 2020. Those are all of our comments this evening.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, community members. Obviously, some of those were submitted prior to our work session on the 7th. And we have more to reflect on this evening. So move into the agenda. Can I have a motion on adoption of that?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Our first study item this evening is our construction update. Not sure who's here from Intner tonight. And
Julie Villa is here and she's coming online.
great. Glad you're feeling better, Julie.
Yes, much better. Thank you. All right.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Here we go. All right. So we keep moving through our process diagram here, and we're now about 3/4 of the way through the design process. We are wrapping up. Well, we're deep into construction documentation on the high school and pretty close to done on the ECC and the elementary. So get into that. All right. As I said, the ECC and elementary construction documents are complete, except that we are currently going through a design process for the elementary school playground equipment selection and ongoing camera and intercom coordination. We have another round of that to do. We've completed construction cost estimates on both of these scopes, and they show the projects to be on budget. And we intend for construction to begin in June 2021 with an allowance for summer school at the ECC and complete sometime mid to late fall of 2021. And we have a little bit of a different strategy that we are going to take for bidding, and I'll get into that in a minute. The middle school and the high school, we've finished design development, so all the pieces are landing in place. We don't foresee any substantial plan changes moving forward, and we're deep into documentation and developing details. We did a post design development cost estimate, actually several, one in-house, one with our construction management team, and then one with a third-party cost estimator. And those kind of all together show the project to be within 1% of our budget target, which is definitely within contingency. It's also definitely within the margin of error. This was not completed construction documents that anyone had to bid. And that's basically where we have thought that we have been tracking for well over a year now. I think once the scope was, everything was prioritized by you all and we understood the scope, we knew we were going to be right there at the budget limits. And that's exactly where we're tracking. So there are a couple of scope items that have been added during design that we are going to bid as alternates. And then we're also working with the admin to identify other potential alternates, things that can be easily bid separately and then pulled out if needed, just so that we make sure that we can stay within budget. And we anticipate construction on this project to begin in summer 2021 as well. The bidding, first this winter, we are going to contact and begin to review plans with some select general contractors in the area. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is to obtain their opinions on phasing and the overall construction schedule, particularly at the middle school and the high school, because that's such a involved scope of work. And then also to introduce them to the project and garner interest in bidding. So we're trying to get some folks interested that wouldn't necessarily be bidding a project of this type and this scope, to get their feedback early on and to kind of, garner their interest in the project. And then instead of bidding the elementary school and the ECC early, which we could, but there's not a benefit to doing that necessarily. We're going to bid all the projects together in the spring so that we can better understand the total construction costs and then realize any potential economies of scale with getting one contractor to do all three projects. I think what we'll do is to give any bidders the option. We'll kind of package if they want to do just the ECC and the elementary or just the middle school or the high school, or take on all three. We will be open to any way that they kind of want to package this. I think we had thought initially that a contractor looking at the scope of the ECC and the elementary wouldn't necessarily be the same size or scale of contractor that would be doing the middle school or the high school, but we'll see what they can offer and look at all potential bids for all three of the projects. For municipal and ongoing jurisdictional coordination, the ECC and elementary school preliminary site plans have been approved by MSD. If we substantially change paving at the elementary school, we'll have to go back and resubmit and get their comments again. But so far, we've not had any issues on either site. The middle school and the high school plans have been submitted to MSD. The design team is working to address the first round of comments. So their review typically takes several months. So we try to get preliminary plans into them as quickly as possible. And they've taken an initial look at the middle school and the high school, and we're reviewing what they came back with. The Maplewood Design and Review Board second review of the exterior of the middle school and high school is planned for their February meeting. So we will submit documentation to them at the end of the month. And then the address changes for all three sites are completed with the county. There is a year during which you can use both addresses. So I think the plan is to roll out the new addresses in the summer of 2021. But that process is complete, so the new addresses will better reflect where the actual building entries are. Got that underway. And that's about all I've got. Any questions from anyone? All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie. Appreciate keeping us on track here. Guess our next agenda item is the new course proposal, technical theater.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Baker. I'm going to get my screen share. It says I can't share while the ITNR represent. There we go. Okay. My name is Emily Baker. I am the middle and high school librarian. I also happen to teach technical theater at the high school level during the school day. And I also am one of the after school technical theater directors for our after school theater program. So I'm going to go ahead and present here. Today, I'm going to suggest adding another course to our curriculum, and it's advanced technical theater. It would focus on lighting, sound, and makeup design. So a little bit of background on our current tech theater course. It focuses on costumes and set design. It's a semester-long course, and it's requested by students at an increasing rate. This year, we had 65 students who requested it, and that's close to double that of previous years. We offered 2 sections in the fall due to that student demand, and we could have filled 2 sections this coming semester, but for various reasons, we decided not to. So we just have 1 this semester. So the rationale for adding this class, we offer advanced acting courses, but no advanced technical theater courses. This course would give students another option to fulfill their credit requirements for graduation. And students who wish to study technical theater in college or work in professional theaters currently only have 1 course to prepare them for those environments. So here's the proposal. The prerequisite, we'd have juniors or seniors could take the course that had successfully completed our first technical theater course in scenic and costume design. Sophomores would be allowed if they were approved by the instructor, which would probably be me. But the upperclassmen would get priority in scheduling because it will probably be a very small class. 7 to 9 kids is my ideal, just so that we can break up the projects evenly and get lots of good work from them. It would be half credit in fine arts. This is the like paragraph that the course catalog might say. Students will study both design theory and practical application. Sorry, I have to minimize the list of people on the side. Practical application of theatrical lighting, sound, and makeup. Students will demonstrate their learning of these key areas of technical theater by designing and producing the lights, sound, and potential makeup for one of our spring high school 1X in conjunction with the Theater 2 acting course. Students will also create a portfolio of their makeup designs complete with photographs of themselves with different styles of stage makeup to be displayed at the high school 1X. Oh, okay, there we go. This is a side-by-side of our current course and the proposed course, so you can kind of see them in comparison. So the current course is on the left. It's a semester-long. Scenic and costume design is what it focuses on. It does include some introduction to theater because it's taken by a wide variety of students, most of whom may not have done theater in the past. And the culminating projects are not physically created or presented to an audience. So for instance, they will read a play and draw a costume design, but they don't actually create that costume out of material. On the right-hand side, this is the proposed course. It's also a semester long. It would focus on lighting, sound, and makeup design. It's more in-depth and technically challenging material because we don't have to spend time on the introduction stuff. It would probably be taken by students involved in theater before, but it certainly wouldn't be a requirement. As long as they had taken the first tech theater course, they would be able to take the advanced course. And the culminating projects are created and presented to an audience at the end of the year. So the course will have 3 main areas of study. You can see that here. This is just another visual. So all 3 of those areas will have a design theory aspect and a practical application. And I go into more detail right here. So for the lighting areas of study, we'll explore color theory, how lighting impacts set and costume choices, study popular theatrical lighting instruments, including our MRH instruments, and learn how to hang and focus those in our theater. And then in conjunction with the Theater 2 acting course, design the lights by creating a lighting plot, hang and focus those lights in the theater, and then operate the light board for one of the Theater 2 course 1X in the spring. For sound, we'll explore possible uses of and impactfulness of sound in theatrical productions, learn the different reasons for using mics during a production and how to use our mic system, learn how to efficiently and effectively use sound effect software / apps. We haven't actually chosen one. Currently, we use one that is a Mac software. And I've been working with the tech department to try and find something that's Chromebook compatible so that the students can work on it anywhere. So we're still working on which one we would use. And in conjunction with the Theater 2 acting course, design the sound effects and pre and post show music, and then also run the soundboard for one of the Theater 2 course 1X. For makeup, we'll look at considerations for makeup in terms of theater space and size. We'll do a brief historical overview of makeup in theater, study and reproduce makeup looks for different effects, basic stage look, middle age, old age, bruise cuts, facial hair. Basically, I love the idea of giving the kids that are in that course that semester like 12 to 14 options, and then they actually choose the makeup labs that we will do and create on their own faces. And then in conjunction with the Theater 2 acting course, design and apply the makeup, if applicable, for one of the Theater 2 course 1X. These are the 2 instructional models that mostly will kind of work under project-based learning and inquiry-based learning. I'm a big proponent of having kids do all the heavy lifting. So giving them, the information they need, but then having them pose the questions and find the problems that we need to solve. These are the standards that we would mostly be working under. I'm not going to read those for you, but I will read the last one because I think it's the one that I'm most excited about us kind of tackling. So present a drama or theater production for a specific audience that employs research and analysis grounded in the creative perspectives of the playwright, director, designer, and dramaturg. And this is an area that I think our curriculum needed some help with. We do this after school, but this idea of the collaboration of these different roles in a professional theater setting. So the playwright obviously wouldn't be involved, but the director will be a student director, the designers are students, and they will be working together in these very professional roles and not just as peers. So I love that idea that we're going to add that into our curriculum. The benefits. So students will gain a deeper understanding of all aspects of the class that can't be reached in our after-school program. Students will be better prepared if they want to go into theater as a profession or area of study. And students in the Theater 2 class, as well as the student directors, will get a more professional, collaborative experience working with tech student designers on their 1-act performances. The implementation, I would write it over the course of the summer this year. Students would be signed up by the counselors the spring of this year and the fall of this year, and then the course would be taught for the first time this spring semester of 2022. The space and planning kind of nuts and bolts. The main classroom for the spring of 2022 would probably be the high school theater. We would use the green room for some of the makeup lessons because it has mirrors. After the renovations, though, we will have a new fine arts flex classroom, and that would be the primary location for this class. We would also need the high school theater at times for the sound and lighting lessons. So here's the startup costs and the yearly budget. You can see on the left-hand side, these are the startup costs. The total would be between $2,370 and $2,600. Most of that's the curriculum writing. The first point there is in italics. That's because we're going to ask the students to purchase their own individual mini makeup kit. This is very kind of heavy duty theatrical makeup. And And this will give them the opportunity to buy this mini kit, and then they'll be able to leave the class with it and then use that in our after school theater program, in college, for Halloween. I love the idea that they're going to walk away with something tangible. They could also purchase the full kit, which is $70 to $100, but obviously that's a lot to ask someone to come up with. Supplemental makeup kits is the next item, and that's $300 to $400. This makeup is kind of expensive, and I do want to kind of fill up our stockpile of things in case we have kids that want to take the class that can't afford those mini makeup kits. So I can kind of use the makeup that I buy for our detailed labs and kind of help them if they can't afford to buy their own kit. $20 to $50 on sponges, brushes, makeup remover. Again, it's heavy duty makeup, so it requires a lot of cleanup. The next one is in italics too, because I don't know that we'll need it. $450 is how much QLab, which is our current sound program for a Mac, would cost if we rented it for the duration of this class. But we actually use a free version right now in the theater, and it has worked fine for our use or our needs. If we needed to rent it though, that is how much it would be. And, if we didn't use that money, we would just not use that money if we find something that's free or something else. And then after that is $100 to $200 for lighting plot templates. That's basically like a little plastic stencil, and it has all of the major lighting instruments, like a tiny icon for them. And then you can use that to create a lighting plot on a piece of paper. And then the last one is $1,500 for curriculum writing, 60 hours over the summer. And then on the right-hand side is the yearly budget. I have to move there we go. Now I can see it. It's $580 to $700. The first one again is the student kits. And then after that, I don't know that I need to really read all of those for you, but it's much less it costs much less each year for this after that first startup of funds. All right, so the next one. So in summary, adding an advanced technical theater course would give our tech-loving students the ability to fine-tune their understanding of lighting, sound, and makeup design to a degree that we cannot reach in the after-school theater program. The class would offer authentic, real-world experiences and give students looking to pursue technical theater after high school the tools and knowledge needed to work at a professional theater or be accepted to a competitive college or conservatory program. The next slide I have is for questions, but before I do that, there's just two things that happened since I created this presentation. One is that I had a conversation with one of our seniors, and he was considering going to a conservatory program, and he was accepted to the college, but you have to apply to a conservatory program. It's pretty competitive. And he had to present a portfolio and do interviews. And in the end, he decided not to do that. And I asked him if it was because he was intimidated by it. And he said, absolutely. So I think having this course, if they've taken the 2 tech theater courses, they'll really have a great portfolio already of things, projects and work that they won't have to compile all on their own. And the second thing is I polled my current 2 sections of tech theater. I gave them a class survey, and I told them about this potential class and asked them who would be interested in taking it next year. And out of 27 kids, I had 15, so 55% said absolutely yes. And 5 of them, 18%, said, yeah, I might. It was a maybe. Only 7 of them said, no, it's not for me. So I think there's a really good interest from our students in this class. So now, does anyone have any questions? Need clarification on anything?
Thanks for this, Emily. As far as any feedback from the TLC committee, are there any highlights you would share from presenting this to them?
Sure, yeah. I had some really good emails that got sent my way, people that are really excited, people that had connections in the theater world. One thing that I did add because of TLC, I originally didn't have any money in the budget for a sound app or software. and they suggested putting some money in the budget for that in case we have to purchase something. And so I added that in.
Great. Appreciate that. We're always trying to improve with the help of our colleagues. You also made me think about my other question, which is, do you see potential opportunities for connecting this class into our apprenticeship metaphor? And I don't know, maybe that's bigger than the scope of just this proposal, but just curious about that.
Yeah, my husband and I act professionally in St. Louis when there's professional theater going on in St. Louis. But I have a lot of contacts of costume designers I've worked with and scenic designers and lighting and sound as well. So what I've actually done for my tech theater course currently is I have some of my colleagues from the professional community come in, and this semester they actually just kind of told the kids their process from start to finish when designing a show, and then took questions. And then what I have done in the past is actually have students present their final culminating projects to a panel of designers, which was really awesome. And unfortunately, we just didn't have the ability to do that this year. I think that I would really, since the class would probably be very small, it would be pretty easy for me to bring in some of those designers to do a little more in-depth work with them. I also know the owner of like a theatrical lighting company in town where I buy all of our theatrical lighting, like bulbs and stuff. And he's come in before and worked with us after school. And I think that he would definitely be open to coming in during the day and working with kids on the lighting stuff.
Great, thanks.
Ms. Baker, thank you so much for this presentation. I think this is a wonderful option for our students. And I know someone, he's in elementary right now, but by the time he hits high school, he will be extremely ecstatic to take your class because he focuses on makeup and design and things like that. So when you were giving the presentation, I was like, oh, I know somebody right now. So that'll be great. My only question is in regard to the mini kits, the mini makeup kits. First, thank you for being mindful of students that wouldn't be able to afford those kits. And I appreciate how you thought of a solution to make sure that they get access to the makeup. But I'm wondering if they wanted to practice at home, they wouldn't be able to, right? Because that makeup would need to stay at the school. And so is there something else that we can do to make sure that they get these kits so they can practice at home if they wanted to, or on someone else, you know, after school is out?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we want to, I don't know exactly how like the funds work because this is new, but if we wanted to, I mean, we could just purchase those things and then give them to them at the end of the semester. I don't know if that's an option. Another thing is one of the ways to hygienically distribute makeup is to use like popsicle sticks. And so what I could do also is just use like Ziploc bags and distribute some of our, bigger kits into Ziploc bags in the foundation color that they need and the highlight and shadow color that they need. And so they could have some to take home, like if they wanted to practice over the weekend. Some of these designs take a lot of time, and so there is the possibility that they will not be able to finish in our class period, whatever the time is at that point. So they may have to go home and finish it and then document it themselves to then get their grade for it. So that's a good point that I'll have to keep in mind to make sure that we have the supplies to send stuff home with them if they need it.
Thank you.
Emily, can I ask you one question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was curious with this course, are there other districts that you know of in St. Louis County that's offering something like this?
I don't know. It actually kind of came about because when our original tech theater course was created, there was actually a companion course that was proposed in lighting and sound. but it was never written. And we found out about it about a year ago. Roxana told me in a meeting. And so it's kind of been like rolling around in my brain. And this semester, I just kind of saw a way for it to really fit well into our curriculum. But I do have a lot of friends who are teachers, theater teachers in the St. Louis area. So I'll reach out to them and see, because, you know, that would be a really great idea to kind of see what they're doing and learn from what they have done already.
Okay. Well, I guess possibly we would be the first then if there's no others. All right, thank you.
Just a comment, just thank you for the presentation. It's exciting to see the theater department come forward with new and exciting curriculum. I think it's well written, well thought out. And this is a department that has done a lot with a little as far as budget is concerned. And so I would echo what Nikki was saying, as well as what TLC feedback was, and just make sure that the resources you need, you have in order to successfully carry this out, because I think it would be something that, you know, many students would want to take advantage of. And I know at least a couple graduates of the district have really used this, enjoyed the theater program, and one in particular is continuing on in that tradition right now as we speak. So thank you for bringing it forward. I'm excited to see new developments in this curriculum.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I echo Francis's statement. I think it was well said that I believe you guys have done an awful lot on very little. So we encourage you to, you know, think a little broadly on that. And then just a personal privilege here to say thank you, because I am the thespian mom, as we have plenty of thespians parents here. And it is just very exciting to me to see the energy that you and Holly have brought to this program, and know that our thespians are going on to college to study at conservatories and in tech and in theater, and makes me a super proud board member. So, and as a mom, thank you for putting up with them. So thanks.
Yeah, I can only add that I am incredibly glad that the district has always had such a strong program in theater, and Gwen is excelling right now in her work as stage management. So I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's terrific. I was wondering if it would be possible to, if it would work, to offer to buy the kits for those who can't afford them, under the agreement that they would return them to the school at the end of the course for use later on for other students who might not be able to afford kits.
We have a lot of ways that we end up assisting kids. So I have no doubt that we can make this work and make sure that we purchase kits for every kid that needs them. So I don't think that will be a problem at all moving forward.
Well, I definitely concur with my colleagues, and I'm excited about it.
All right, well, thanks for joining us this evening. I believe that will be on our agenda for next month, just in case any other questions come up in between. So
Thank you.
we'll move forward to the policy DK update here.
Good evening, everybody. I will make this quick. After all, this is the second read for this, but just in case there are any additional questions. Policy DK is our payment process. This dictates when and how we disperse our funds. Typically, it is only after the approval of the warrant list by the board, which in our case is in the consent agenda each month. What this policy recommendation that I'm putting forth does is it allows the business office a little bit more flexibility on paying some of those more regular bills, and also sometimes those bills that pop up out of sequence with a board meeting that would either provide us a discount or a penalty if they weren't paid in a timely fashion. So there are the bounds of $7,500 cumulative to a single vendor, not to exceed $10,000 per month. So the bounds on this policy are fairly modest. Also for utilities and P&I on duly authorized bonds. Also, it's important to note that any of those payments that were made out of sequence like that would be included in a section on the warrant list on the next regular board meeting.
All right. Any questions? This is on the action items this evening. All right. Then we'll look at the policy DD.
So DD is a policy that you've already approved. We sent it to the MSB editors and they returned it to us because they did not like one of the lines that we inserted. We asked and talked through the fact that we would require board approval on any grants that required district funds as part of a match or that required in-kind staffing that would obligate funds, but we did not require grants that didn't require any obligation from the district to have prior board approval before submission. And the reason that we asked to insert that language is we have a very small staff and a lot of times grants come up quickly. And if we can get free money, we only have one board meeting a month. And so we often file grants quickly as we hear of them. And it's just a way to make sure that we are in queue and that we're applying for all the money that we're eligible for without having to stop and wait for the monthly board meeting. And so the MSBA attorney acknowledges in this reply to us, as well as our own attorney, because I did call and talk with Cindy Ormsby, there is no legal reason why we cannot have the policy the way it is written. I think the concern is a concern of transparency, or that perhaps the auditors would want to make sure that the board knows of any money that the district might be receiving. So because of the comments, I thought we should bring it back and give you an opportunity to look at it one more time. If you are okay with the policy as written, but we don't need to do anything other than to tell MSBA to file it, as we have already done. If you do want to make adjustments, then we can talk about that and give me some direction, and I can work with Cindy Ormsby to suggest a correction. My recommendation is leave it the way that it is, unless you have concerns. I mean, unless you feel strongly that the board should approve anything as we apply. We always bring you things that we receive before we receive money.
Yeah, and I think the caveat there obviously was that typically these things don't require any sort of match or, from the board. So there's really no obligation to really do anything until the money has been granted to us. And you can always not accept a grant once it's been awarded if that's really going to be a concern. So yeah.
Yeah, I want you guys looking for all the grants you can possibly find. Sorry, I'll just say that right now. So MSBA can.
We've been pretty good at it. We've had less time to give attention this year, but we've been okay.
All right, that is.
Hey, I'm sorry, Katie, forgive me. I was just kind of mulling something over. I agree with what Francis just said. I don't want you to have to wait to come to us. But see, this is why I was like, I had to wait, because I'm like, okay, let me formulate my question properly. I mean, would it be helpful, like, if we just had some type of language in the policy that says you can do this without having to wait for a meeting or ask us, but you'll just let us know within some period after you've made the application?
I mean, we could certainly have that language. I don't know. There's no legal obligation to do either of those things. It really is just what is your comfort level? Well,
okay. I'd like to talk about that. That's my comfort level, because it does for me go to, like, you all are able to do this, but here is the transparency that's triggered in our policy that, this will be reported soon after. You don't have to ask for permission, but you've let the board know that this has happened.
Well, it
Okay,
could be something as simple as just some kind of quarterly report, just of, what we've applied for and what we've received, because
Or, yeah,
frankly, grants are competitive. I'm a grant writer. I know you have to be able to pivot, move fast, and get that application in. And Katie's right. You don't have to accept the funding. It doesn't look great if you don't, but so I think maybe it's more of a procedural piece rather than in policy.
I like it in policy, but
could it just be as simple as like at the next scheduled meeting, updates will be disclosed of any
Yeah.
applications?
yeah,
at the
I mean,
next scheduled
it's
board
totally
meeting?
fine, and that has been our practice. However, this policy is a little broader in that, which I still think will work. This actually talks about every employee, so this would include donors choose and lots of things that sometimes I like them all to hit my radar. We've told all staff that they need to hit my radar, but I mean, it is very broad, so we can certainly cast that net.
thank you
Yeah.
for that consideration.
Yeah, and I think if there's the need to, as far as policy stipulate like district applied for, I think to your point, there may be things that individual teachers are doing or individual, folks are doing, which again, appreciate the, the gumption to go after stuff. And sometimes those things are targeted at individuals as opposed to districts. And we really only are going to oversee what is at the district level.
So I'm hearing add language about quarterly reporting, or will be reported to the board at the next available board meeting, something like that. I'll work on some language and bring that back to you next month. How does that sound?
Great. All right, we'll move on then to the bus lease. Chris.
Okay, so I provided for you the summary sheet for the lease along with the payment amounts. So the term is for 8 years. That is to distribute the additional costs for the propane buses over a larger period of time, thus lessening our payment. The lease is for 4 gas-powered buses and 4 propane or auto gas-powered buses. The payments will be just a little north of $122,000 per year. We're roughly, depending on the year, we're about $98,000, $99,000 on the current lease. So this is slightly more, but I think worth the investment here in the realm of environmental kindness, as it were. So we are moving forward with propane with your blessing, and this lease term would begin on July 1 of 2021.
We've received information about this in process. Are there any questions this evening about that? It is an action item this evening to approve the lease.
Appreciate the legwork on this and the ability to fit in with a more sustainable and environmentally friendly option and not sacrificing safety and all of that. I think this was a nice, elegant solution and kind of goes hand in hand, I guess, with the next agenda item too, but I don't want to jump ahead.
Thanks, Francis. It's been well worth your time. I agree. It fits directly in with the green initiatives that the district has underwent in the previous years. And I know at least one middle school principal was very excited about this proposition. So I'm happy to contribute in that regard as well. So Katie, with your permission, I'll move on to the next component of this, which is part and parcel of the propane powered buses, which is we need a source of propane. So we are still working through the details with the city. We have to go before the design and review board. That will be upcoming. We are also still working with our civil engineers to get the site work prepped and planned so that we can present that to the design and review board of the city. I don't foresee any issues here. I spoke with our propane rep today and gave him an idea of our timeline. They do these things every day. They can put this equipment together quickly and install it quickly. It installs in a day. So we should be able to hit our targets of taking delivery of both our buses and our propane station prior to July 1. If that were to happen to change, we do have a backup plan in that we can arrange a propane fueling delivery service. So, but I'm confident that Plan A will work. Oh, and the details of the agreement, I guess I want to share those as well. The propane agreement is for 5 years, and what that gets us is the tank, the pump, and the fueling station along with the motor. And our agreement is that we will buy the fuels from AmeriGas, and we will also receive annually the 32 to 36 cent per gallon federal rebate that was renewed on the fuel. But that payment does come but once a year.
Is operating this propane fueling station, I mean, is this something that any of the maintenance and, you know, transportation staff will be able to do, or is it something that requires some sort of specialty?
They will receive training from AmeriGas, and they can do that whenever we like. So I would probably recommend that we would have that training occur anytime we would cycle through a new driver. But it is literally as simple as connecting that hose and activating the pump. It has all the safety features that you would expect on a device such as that. It's not all that dissimilar from fueling your own car or truck, except that it's a liquid propane. So, and it's obviously an airtight seal as you're doing it. So,
Pretty unusual, Chris, but I assume that like most propane tanks, it's going to be an above ground tank.
it will be an above ground tank, Wes. It's a 1,000-gallon tank. We're going to be putting that on the extreme north. I'm looking at the map, the extreme northwest corner of our lot, and we will be putting a barrier around that in the form of crash bollards, as well as a screen, so that it's not a big white eyesore on the back of our property. So it will blend in with the surroundings.
Okay, great.
I know that's really important to the city, and I think also to the aesthetics for our safe and inspirational spaces initiatives, so that it's not an eyesore.
I think that was one of the first questions I asked was, how ugly is this going to be?
Well, without offense, it'll be a big white whale with yellow stripes. So we'll make sure that it's appropriately screened.
Say, Chris, that pad for the propane tank, is that something you think our neighbors, surrounding neighbors would be concerned about?
The pad itself?
Yes. Do you think our neighbors would be concerned about the safety of that? Or has that ever?
I guess that's always possible, Ralph. I know propane is one of our safer fuels, and
Yeah.
Wes being in that industry, I think may be able to attest to that. But I think it is a worthwhile question.
Okay. I was just wondering, you know, when this goes through City Hall and everything, would any neighbors in the surrounding area would have any say-so about this?
Well, I think that any installation.
We can all.
I'm sorry, Chris, I'm sorry to anticipate.
No, please go ahead.
Any installation of this type that we're talking about would have to go through, I think Chris already mentioned it, the design and review process, and would also be probably something that came before city council. So public comment would be, there would be public comment, and I think the council might give them an opportunity to go further with that than just public comment. But I don't know. That's a guess. But these things get installed at places, hospitals, and all sorts of places all the time.
Okay. I was just more concerned, particularly since we have a lot of residential homes around our school and everything, versus commercial property with that. Residents could be probably very concerned about something like that. So, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how the city handles it And if there's a hearing, what residents might say concerning it.
And Ralph, we have our AmeriGas rep is prepared to assist us in that regard with the safety metrics and those types of other reports that we would be able to provide to folks should that occur.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
All right, well, we'll be voting on the bus lease and the AmeriGas agreement this evening. With that, I guess we can move on to our admin communication. First up, the COVID data update.
All right, here's your regular COVID update for the week. When we take a look at these COVID numbers, you'll notice that they are down for both the state and the county substantially from last report, which is good. That holiday bubble seems to be receding. The transmission rate is down for the state below 1 again, which we like to see. The county transmission rate right now has remained flat, although the last 3 days have also seen significant drops. So I expect that number to go lower. You'll see that the new case rates are lower in every category except the 14-day rate, which we expect to see flatten next week. Our positivity rates are also down. And they were in the 17% to 18% range last week. If we look at our zip code data, we will see decreases in our numbers slightly locally. And when you look at our student case rates, you'll see that they remain, again, lower than the general population, which is something that we continue to keep our eyes on. Currently within MRH, our total case rate since March is 65 students that have reported COVID cases. We had 1 case within the district within the last week. We currently, as of Tuesday, had 1 active case among MRH employees. And we had 6 staff members in quarantine and 10 students as of Tuesday. Any questions?
Obviously, things are still not great. I mean, again, appreciate that trends are hopefully leveling off or moving in the right direction, but just continue to appreciate the vigilance with which our staff are approaching this, and that we will need our community of students' support in continuing to take this seriously.
That's exactly right. And I know I saw, I hope you saw in the weekly message that went out, we're continuing to encourage families to do the self-checks at home, staff members to do the self-checks at home, making sure that all of those mitigation controls that we have are followed religiously when we're here together at school. I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Roxana, has there been any communication from the St. Louis Health Department to you or from some other organization about when staff might be able to get vaccines? I know the nurses, I think you said they've been vaccinated, right?
Yes, I meet with the school response team every Thursday. So I was with them this morning, actually, for quite some time. Right now, we are encouraging all staff members that might be in high-risk groups over 65 or with health concerns to go ahead and sign up through any and all venues. So we have about 5 contact points that folks can sign up to get in queue for vaccine. Our nurses got to go with the 1B Tier 1, which is the health professionals. And so our nurses have received their first doses of vaccines. We have staff members with health needs who are in queue for vaccines. And then all of the remaining staff will be in 1B Tier 3. And at this point, as of this morning, the health department had not received any word from the governor's office about when they might activate Tier 3. So we're still encouraging everyone to sign up through all of the venues that they have available to them, which can be the county health departments, it can be the county health systems, it can be the county in which they live. On the call with us on Thursdays are from all of the surrounding counties' health departments as well. And they're basically saying it doesn't matter to them, get it where you work, get it where you live. So we're getting everybody together. We also talked today about a mass response plan, a pod plan, if you will. That will only work if the available doses of vaccine increase dramatically. So we were told today there are 2 to 3 other vaccines that they expect will receive approval within the next few weeks. And if the availability of vaccine greatly exceeds the way it's currently trickling in, then what we would try to do across the education system is create vaccination sites. So we would band regionally schools together and create vaccination sites where we could deploy a large number of healthcare staff and school staff to do the paperwork and the vaccinating and try to just knock everybody out, in mass as the vaccines come in. So there's been quite a lot of planning around it. The unknown for us right now is the quantity and delivery of vaccine. Thank you for asking that.
And if I could just add one quick thing, not only were the nurses able to get vaccinated, but anyone helping out in the healthcare offices. So our attendance secretaries, we got about 9 people able to get their first vaccine last Friday, in fact. And they're scheduled to get their second vaccine in early February. And they are excited.
Roxanne, I have a quick question. I remember last year we were talking about there was this movement to have teachers, I guess, qualified as like essential. And when we were talking about that, we were like, I remember Dr. Hall was like, absolutely not. We don't want to do this. And I agreed with her then and still do now. But my question is, if teachers, within the state were determined to be essential, are they like higher on that list to get the vaccine? Okay, I see you shaking your head now.
That designation was to try to get some kind of provision by which even if they were exposed, they wouldn't have to quarantine. They'd still come to work. So that's why we rejected that, because we're not putting anybody or increasing safety risk. We're taking the most conservative approach with quarantine and isolation for everyone's safety. So that didn't have anything to do with the vaccine per se. What does matter, though, is if we have any employees over 65, if we have any employees that have, diabetes, a whole list of health concerns, they're actually eligible to get the vaccine now. And so we're trying to get the word out to make sure that they're already in queue. And then the very next group, as soon as we work through that group, would be teachers, actually any school staff. So regardless of the position you hold, if you work for a school, you'll be able to be vaccinated in the next wave whenever they open it.
Thank you, Roxanna, for helping me understand that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess we can move on then to our buildings and grounds update. Although I don't see Mike.
Mike was not able to join us this evening. However, he and I are in regular communication, so I am well versed in the goings on of that department and the transportation department. So I'd be happy to run you through this update. So we are in preparation for our students to return on the 25th. Everything is on time and on schedule for that. Maintenance and custodial are chugging through their work orders and making the necessary repairs and adjustments. Our water bottle fillers are all now installed on all floors and all buildings, one on each floor in all buildings. The custodial crews continue to practice sanitation protocols. So one of the things that they are doing soon, if they haven't done it already, they're doing very soon, is doing dry runs, practice runs, to make sure that they've got their procedures and techniques and doing those in as efficient of a manner as possible in that space between when the AM students leave and the PM students arrive. Cindy Northern, our head bus driver, and I have been working through the transportation aspects, and with the help of the community and the responses to our survey, we've got a good idea on our bus routes, and we are working through last details on those, but they've also been doing their practice runs. You may have been seeing the buses go through the community. So we are looking forward to bringing students back. One of the things that is important as the teachers come in is they're making small tweaks. Teachers started back this week on campus. They're making small tweaks to their spaces, making sure the plexi is where it needs to be, and that everything is just so for their teaching styles so that they can still be safe and also teach with as little disruption due to those additional measures as possible. One other important aspect is emergency preparedness. So Mike and the department are reworking our emergency protocols to make sure that the safety mitigation measures are included in them. And sometime in February, we will be beginning drills to make sure that students can still exit the building or take the necessary shelter within the building in case of an emergency. So even though we're back and even though there's COVID, we still have to stay safe in the event of an emergency. Coming up on our construction updates, WTI, that's our owner managed projects, which is the boring stuff, HVAC, windows, those types of things. All of the HVAC rooftop units were replaced at the end of December and are, for the most part, complete, and they all went well. It's important to also share, excited to also share that we were able to take advantage of an Ameren rebate that we received. We got it just last week, I believe, $33,591 saved as a result of being able to put a little bit of a fast track on the installation of these energy efficient HVAC units. So that's exciting. That's another $33,500 that we can spend on our broader project. The window replacement is still scheduled for the summer. Ittner is also helping us with our ECC cottage. They're wrapping up the exterior decks and the ramps. And in February, we should have a date for occupancy, final approval and occupancy. So we look forward to bringing that to you. And that was a full report that I went through quickly. Do you have any questions? Very well.
All right, thank you. Our next update is from the high school about winter sports.
Sorry, I was talking and couldn't bring them on. They're coming on now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amber Jordan, the athletic director, and I know Kevin Grauer is on the call also, and he'll join us when he can. I'm going to share with you my screen. As we're moving forward with winter sports, currently our athletes are conditioning in practice, so that's basketball, wrestling, and cheerleading. Some dates that we have coming forward where we are asking to compete in games versus other schools. For wrestling, some dates that are coming up shortly in order to be able to compete in districts, we would have to begin matches next week. Matches for girls for districts begin February 3rd, and matches for boys the 12th through the 9th or 13th, excuse me. For basketball, actually, the date for the districts has changed. Their districts is now February 27th because the state is trying to spread out all the different classes, so not to have as many schools competing at the same time. So they did move our district date to the 27th. So we would need to begin games next week to get in games to compete and able to participate in these districts to get our kids ready to kind of have an advantage due to a lot of these other schools already playing. Another consideration is that our fall alternate sports, so boys soccer, volleyball, and softball, who did not get to compete in the fall, is supposed to begin practices February 22nd, which I believe is before the next board meeting. So that would just be another date for their practices to begin February 22nd. And then spring sports, our traditional spring sports, baseball, girls soccer, golf, and track and field, their sport practices are supposed to begin February or March 1st. Not a full representation, but schools that I have reached out to, a lot of the suburban conference is playing currently right now in winter sports. The North County schools, who some are not back in school yet, were not playing, but now are practicing and have games scheduled to play. I do know that Riverview is not playing right now, so that was one school I did find that was not competing, but most of the other suburban schools are playing. The other schools in our SEAA conference, which is a conference that we are in, are currently all playing all of their winter sports. So they're all playing basketball, and they are also wrestling. GAC, which is conference, is also playing private schools in St. Louis and the St. Louis Public City Schools. Most of them who actually have teams are playing. There's some that were not able to house teams this year, so those schools obviously are not participating in winter sports. And then some charter schools, with the exception that I found of Gateway Science, we're all competing in the winter sports currently. And Kevin, please add in whenever you need to.
I don't know if y'all can hear me. Yeah. Can you hear me,
So,
Amber?
yes, I can.
I was going to add that our boys basketball and wrestling and girls basketball and cheerleading have been practicing for well over a month now. Following the mitigations we placed upon them, and we've had no outbreaks that we know of or quarantines.
Currently, we have 41 athletes conditioning right now with our winter sports. 13 of these are juniors, 7 of who are looking to either play college basketball or wrestle. And then we do have 3 seniors that are cheerleaders. And looking at sports like basketball, where there's not a lot of numbers that are played at a time, only 5 men or women on the court. Their junior year is a huge recruiting year for them. Also with the juniors and seniors, as schools in apprenticeship, we have had the fortunate of having, at least my time here, we've had 2 students who have taken over our announcing at games. One who is a former student whose mom's on this meeting right now. We are very lucky to have him constantly come back and help with our announcing, and working with our new schools and our internship teacher. We're looking at finding other students who kind of want to go into that broadcasting role and give them opportunities at these games. If we were allowed to compete, we would have to do this live streaming. So that would give a student or students a lot of opportunity to kind of work in that broadcasting field and work with videotaping and learning how to live stream to large audiences. We also use Otto Schultians's classes. They make all of our programs for us. They do our senior portraits and posters for us. And they go to the games and take yearbook pictures and videos for us for our banquets and stuff. So wrapping back into schools and apprenticeship, this having athletics throughout the year gives other students, other than just the athletes, a chance to kind of take part in what we do at our school. And Kevin, do you want to talk about the guidelines?
Yeah, sure. We have worked hard to ensure that our student athletes and our coaches are being vigilant with our expectations in terms of what we want to model in terms of safety around COVID. And we had planned, in terms of games, if we were to arrive at that point, we would do temperature checks prior to entering the gym. We would limit locker room dress. In fact, at halftime, obviously to use the restroom, but we would not plan on doing the small locker room setting, because if you've been in our locker rooms, even having a team of 12 in there, you can't really socially distance. We were going to eliminate that. The only personnel we would invite to the games would be the referees, the scorekeepers, the players, the coaches. We would not have spectators, and everybody in the space would be required to wear a mask. Cheerleaders would only be allowed to attend our home contests. We would not send them on road contests. And as Amber said, we plan to video record and live stream. I know Mr. Saucel, our new career connections teacher, has been working really hard on this, and with Chris too, trying to develop a plan. And the games would begin next week if we were to move forward on this. All players, we don't share water bottles or equipment. Everybody brings their own. We do have a touchless water fountain again. And we would not open the concession stand during the games. It would be a strange environment to have a basketball game, and I've been to one where the gym was closed. And yes, it's definitely different. It was kind of like a scrimmage, and the feeling I had was that it almost felt like the two teams were the same school, because you're almost all doing this together.
Some reasons why we should pursue playing. We have confidence that we can do this safely. Like Kevin had said, our coaches and athletes have been doing this since cross country and onward with conditioning, and have done so successfully. Our students are really anxious to get back. I know I had to ask them for the coaches, for jersey numbers, just in anticipation. If we could play, I had to get rosters in 4 districts, and the kids were just excited to get a number and see their jerseys and so forth. We have self-assessments in place. The kids wear masks, their sanitation. We at our school would have no fans. There would be social distancing expectations, spreading out chairs for the benches, and not having 2 cheerleading squads there, just having our own home cheerleaders at our home games. And then we also reserve the right to cancel anything. So if we feel unsafe or feel that our safety could be compromised at any point with an opponent or even within ourselves, just to cancel the contest or the game. And our coaches have been enforcing these procedures and expectations at their practices and conditioning. So we feel very confident with our coaching staff and our athletes to be able to carry this forward. Are there any questions or comments?
So I have a lot of concerns about this. I think the community has asked us to open up classrooms, right, for learning. And I think any additional opportunities for exposure to COVID have the potential to compromise our ability to get kids back in classrooms. I am certainly, as a former high school athlete myself, empathetic to the importance of it. But the reason that I voted to return to classrooms was because of the multiple layers of protection, many which just are not going to be available in these settings. And I, again, trust our staff have been doing the very best they can. This is an insidious virus, and there is additional transmission, issues now with the variations. So I'm just very uncomfortable with this.
I echo President Kaufman's viewpoints on this. I think that we're moving forward in order to ensure our kids get the academics they need, which is amongst that's got to be one of our primary focus. I'm concerned that we might have disruptions which might create quarantines and make it more difficult for us to achieve our primary focus at this time. And I am also concerned about the lack of, we're not putting plexiglass around these kids. We're not, and even though they'll be wearing masks, I presume while they're playing, they're still going to be face to face, particularly if they're wrestling. I wrestled in high school. I don't know how one of those masks would stay on my face during a wrestling match. So that's where I'm at.
I agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brandy.
I do concur with Wes and with Katie about some of the concerns. Also, this would be a competition against other schools No disrespect to those schools. Obviously, I'm sure they're also taking this virus very seriously, but then we're also interjecting other people that may or may not follow some of the same protocols we have worked so hard to get in place. So that does concern me. And I agree too. I think we need to focus on getting the kids back in school and seeing how that goes, and trying to minimize any opportunity to have them have to revert back to a all virtual tier if possible.
I too echo what my previous colleagues just stated, and Brandy, you touched on what I was going to say. I have full confidence in our staff. I don't know anything about the other staff from the other school, and so that's really my concern. That hasn't. I just wanted to flesh that out a little bit more, but I have the same concerns that have just been stated.
So I understand my colleagues' concerns. I too am concerned about wrestling because I think of just the way the contact of that sport is a little challenging. But I have relative experience of seeing how this is done firsthand with my child, and actually my child who was actually injured during practice, and how the words vigilant and even militant our coaches have been in making sure that they are safe. I think I think the board probably would have a higher tolerance for our outdoor sports than the indoor sports right now. However, I do have faith in our coaches. I do have concerns though about post-game and pre-game kind of behaviors. Just so if I could get a little bit more clarity about that, I think that would be helpful. But, you know, as someone who lives this, you know, although my son does not play any of these sports, you know, I think other schools have done it, and it has shown and demonstrated examples to us of how we can do it and do it safely with our trusted staff. But if I could get some clarity on the pre and post game behaviors, I think that would be helpful as well.
Are you just talking about between like the two teams, or as far as pre and post game?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so and what I've witnessed too is post game, there's no high-fiving after the game. There's no line. You just kind of wave, good game, move on. So the teams are separated immediately after the game. There would be no reason for them to interact before the game either. They would both be on their own side, doing their own warm-up on their own benches. So the only time they'd be in contact would be during the competition. And with the way that our gym is situated, we have 4 exits really, that we could exit teams and officials out of separate exits.
I have a quick question, Amber, too. How do the kids get to the games?
How do our kids get to the games?
Yes.
Our bus transportation.
Okay.
And currently our biggest team in the winter has 15 players. So we're not looking at huge teams here with multiple levels. We're looking at varsity only.
Our current bus capacity is 23.
Any other clarifying questions? This is an action item this evening. All right. Thank you, Dr. Brower and Ms. Jordan.
Thank you.
All right. And then we have an update on the process, I assume, for preschool registration.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ben.
And I think Cindy Heemenstraat's going to join me too, because she knows a lot more about preschool registration than I do. I'm her faithful attaché on this project. It was sort of interesting working on this project because preschool registration in 2020, which is nearly a year ago, seems like 10 years ago. You know, it was before the COVID shutdown. We did the normal traditional lineup outside the door, like it's a concert tickets and those kind of things. It's so much has changed at MRH, which will reflect in this presentation. We just wanted to give you some updates about where we're at with preschool registration. Dr. Hebenstreit and her team have put together a really strong group to kind of update the preschool registration process. So just a couple of things. I'll kick it off and hand it over to Cindy with more details. But our capacity currently is about 210 students, give or take. And based on that historical data, about 110 kids usually return. I use air quotes because we didn't have preschool this year, but usually return for their second year of preschool, which leaves us about 100 spots between all of our programming. So we typically enroll, 90 or plus students new every year. Okay, that's our capacity today on January 21st. I know they're exploring some expansion possibilities, and that does include our First Friends group, which we're hoping to reintroduce again this year. That's just that's the same information we would have shared a year ago in terms of our capacity in our program. And also similar, there are 4 kind of enrollment groups. We have the returning preschoolers. They get the kind of first crack at it. Students that want to return for their second year of preschool. Again, we have identified those folks. So those are folks that registered last year and were not able to attend. Peggy Russell, who does an outstanding job. I want to give her a lot of credit. She's outstanding. Knows those families very well. She's so friendly. And she's going to be reaching out to them and giving them the first crack. So that window for them will open on February 8th. We'll have 2 full work weeks to confirm their interest in returning for preschool in 2021-22. We're going to waive the registration fee, which because they paid it last year, so we're not going to charge them again, unless it was returned. I don't think very few of them were returned. So that's the first group of folks, returning preschoolers, and they'll probably gobble up about 100 of the spots. The next group that goes are the parents as teachers, active parents as teachers, families, and siblings of MRH students. That's the group that does line up and kind of have to kind of have good timing in terms of accessing the remaining preschool spots. That registration will open on Saturday, February 27th at 8 a.m. And the enrollees will be notified of their spot and the availability on March 10th. And we'll talk more about how that process is going to play out. And the third group is just the open enrollment after that. So after the first 2 priority groups go, then we have open enrollment that will begin March 15th and just stays open throughout the year as spaces become available. Head Start is a separate group. I don't know if you've ever seen a Head Start enrollment packet, but it's about 6 times bigger than a regular preschool enrollment packet. It's a great program, but it's very comprehensive. We currently have 17 Head Start spots of the 210 that we've set aside. So they won't be in the pool for folks applying. Again, Peggy will work with those families, has to work with those families one-on-one because the enrollment process in the packet is much more involved. So she'll start that process on February 8th. And again, she'll continue that throughout the year as we identify students who are eligible for the Head Start program. And we do that in partnership with the YWCA. So those are the 4 groups. And that's also the same as years past. But we've had to make some enrollment changes, obviously. We had a great dry run at this, not a dry run, we had an active run with kindergarten enrollment last year when we had to pivot to the virtual enrollment. And I hope that Cindy's on here. Hey, Cindy, I'm gonna turn this over to you for the enrollment changes, okay? First of all, how did I do in describing the groups?
You were great, Vince.
Okay. I just wanted to hand it off to you. I did the easy stuff.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I also want to extend my thanks to Chris Holzer's department, to Rachel Ward, to Vince, and then my whole admin team for being very thoughtful about preschool registration and, each year trying to improve it to better serve our families and meet their needs in an equitable and respectful fashion. So I think I've probably said this before in other presentations that I've done since the closure. While COVID-19 has caused great tragedy for many, I do always try to find the silver linings. And I must say that one of the silver linings has been the allocation of resources to move our registration process to an online format. And as Vince mentioned, we were able to do this last year for kindergarten and it went really well. And so I am delighted to announce that moving forward, preschool registration will be online, eliminating the 4 a.m. setup and camp chairs and all those things that happen because people are trying to get in line to register for our preschool. It's great that we have that interest, but it also does create a lot of drama. So we will have an online process this year. All our forms have been made enterable or fillable, if you will. After the parents complete the forms and upload their documents to their computer, they will be moved into a secure Dropbox. That worked very well with kindergarten registration, with about half as many, or really it's probably about the same amount of students. Molly found that to be a very easy process to work with, and documents were secured rather than parents just attaching these personal and private documents in an email. So thanks to Chris's team for pulling that together for us and also showing us how that works. So in terms of the first online day for our PAT families and current siblings of MRH students, we have a Google form that we developed, and it will open at 8 a.m. on February 27th. This Google form is simply going to be for them to get their place in line and give us very basic data on their child and what programming they hope, or what slot they hope to have for their child. We were at that same time going to have them upload all of those documents to the secure Dropbox, but then realized it could cause many problems and might be an equitable situation if a family didn't have the particular document they needed, or they were struggling to get it uploaded to their computer. Then even though they might have been there and ready, they were not going to have that place in line that they had hoped for. So the form is very easy. It can be accessed very easily on a phone. And again, for our families that might only have a phone, uploading all those documents that morning would be very problematic. So I think it's an elegant solution that we came up with. Again, they'll be time stamped, and then they will have until March 5th to upload those documents, and we will have staff available to help them in the event that that is problematic for them. If a parent cannot do it on a computer, then they will be able to call our preschool secretary and our parents as teachers, educators over that 2-week time span, and we can walk them through that process, or we would have an allowance for them to possibly drop off paper copies that we could scan in and then put in the secure Dropbox. So I think we've thought through those processes and have considered all the different needs that families might have. We also, this year, which is very exciting, we will allow parents to pay the registration fee, and this will only be for our newly enrolling families. Our families last year paid that fee, and obviously we did not have preschool this year, so their fees will be covered. But for our new families, they are going to be able to pay through the Square. I guess it's an app, and that is another exciting development. However, if there is a family that only can pay by check or money, we will make arrangements that they could drop that off at the ECC. Okay. Again, to the equity piece, on that morning of February 27th, myself, Peggy Russell, and my 2 PAT educators will be available by phone to troubleshoot should a parent have any problem or question about the process that day. Communication, our parents as teachers, staff, I didn't personally mention them, and I wanted to give them a huge shout out. Colleen Hogan and Sarah Patterson, once they got their first half of the year in and lived through our first preschool enrollment, which was not last year, it was the year before, they took it on last year to come up with a frequently asked questions document, which not only having it was important, but getting us all together and really talking about these very specific things and really clarifying our process was a tremendous help. And last year, even though we still had the 4 a.m. lineup, the process went so much better, and people we're so appreciative of the changes that we had made. So again, Colleen and Sarah have been at the forefront this year. They've developed a new FAQ document. And again, we all met as a team, and they really helped us think through issues as we move to online. And we have that available for you. I believe Vince has uploaded that to Board Docs, so you can look at it at your leisure. I think, as Vince already mentioned, our preschool registrar, Peggy Russell, has already been reaching out to families, and our new social worker, Kayleen Portel, has also been reaching out to our current preschool families just to let them know that the process will be unfolding soon. They will get information, and really just to welcome them back and let them know that we will be excited to see them again. Okay. And all the information about preschool registration will be posted to the website on February 1st. Vince and I and Ed Rich are going to meet, so we make sure we get it in a specific spot on the website. I know Vince has a desire to have all registration in one location on the website, so we're going to make sure that happens by communicating clearly with each other. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I actually just want to commend you all on all the hard work you guys have put in, and especially the time and energy that's put into thinking with an equitable lens about families that may struggle with the online to make that more equitable for them. I just truly applaud you, and I'm so proud of you guys.
Thanks. It's been a collaborative effort.
Going to be a big change. No more chicken biscuits in the morning, but for this process to be the way that it is, we can sacrifice that. So thank you all.
All right. Well, we'll find another time for chicken and biscuits because they're very good.
Yeah,
They really are.
And I did just put up so you guys see. You guys are key communicators for us. So that's the FAQ page that that Cindy was referring to. And again, parents and teachers they've been like strong leaders in this process. I'm the newbie on this. I never usually do preschool registration. So I've been so impressed by the group, all hands on deck, Peggy, PAT, Ed, Chris, Kayleen Portel, Cindy, of course. I mean, it's been a great team effort. Molly participating and pitching in. It's such a wonderful group effort. But this FAQ page is critically important for that group. And it answers a lot of their questions on the front end, which makes the registration go better. So you have access to that. Share it. Spread the word.
Great. Well, appreciate this update on the process, and good luck with the return of children next week, Dr. H.
Thank you very much. I know when we started talking about preschool registration, I mean, people just looked at me like, oh my goodness, we have to open school. I'm like, well, I know, but we still have to do this. So we made it, and we'll be ready for students too on Monday.
Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move into our finance reports then. Chris?
All right, I will make this quick and painless for everybody. Our revenues are trending about where we'd expect them to be this time of year. Local revenues are lagging just slightly as a result of Preschool and Discover Club not being in session and those food sales to students and adults. Everything else is pretty much where we would expect it to be. On the county side, we are receiving our county tax payments as we would expect. You'll see another large change to that revenue to date next month. We received quite a bit just a couple of weeks ago, so we're excited about that. That's a good thing to see, that those tax bills are, those tax revenues are rolling in as they typically would in spite of COVID. State revenue are where we would expect them. You noticed that bump last year, it was due to a timing issue, but if you look 1 year before that, we're more on par. The other revenue is related to our sale of our Burgess properties. I drove by there the other day and I saw that those properties are doing quite well without the help of the district. So I'm happy to see that those homes have come back to life. On our expenditure side, salaries and benefits are where we would expect. We will be making some slight changes to that as we are adjusting our staffing slightly to adjust for to accommodate our extra mitigation measures and social distancing when the students return, as well as some substitute teachers that we've brought on from Kelly Services two for each building, so that we always make sure that we have enough adult coverage for our students. So that's important. I mention that because on the purchase service side, up until now, that those expenditures have been lagging. We will be spending those funds now as we move to the end of the year. That's the best way I can say that, but all in the interest of the public health and safety of our students and teachers. Supplies budgets, I've been seeing the expenses come through as we prepare for students to return next week. Capital outlay are lower just due to moving the majority of our capitalized purchases into our bond projects. I always like to share that our 85% of our revenues are related to our local sources, so we can't thank our taxpayers enough for that and their commitment to our district. On the expenditure side, it's always worth noting that 75% of our expenditures on the operating budget goes to our people, our salaries and benefits and wages for our dedicated MRH employees. So our budgeted fund balance at this point in the year, we are budgeting at a 40.2% fund balance. And I will keep my my gut feelings and reactions to where we will end. It's still a little bit too early to tell, but I feel confidently that the district is in a solid and sound financial position, largely in part to the board's commitment to the fiscal responsibility that we've been engaged in the last 4 years. So, any questions? All right, with that, I will move on to our COVID expenditures. The board did ask that I track these expenditures separately so that we can see those. That's been an interesting challenge, but we've been able to do it. I will just go through these quickly. We categorized these last month for you, and I think that was a little bit more higher level view of these. To date, paid in money, checks out the door, $467,259. There's $88,000 encumbered, which means they are going to be paid, but are not paid yet. Committed funds, and then that brings us to a total of $555.6 thousand. $240,000 of that's been reimbursed through various federal and state and county grants, leaving a net cost to the district at this point just a little bit south of $316,000. I will say that if you look across that PPE and cleaning, the extreme commitment that we've made to making sure that our safety measures and our disinfecting protocols, as well as training and devices and disinfecting equipment and supplies, are where they need to be in order to safely bring students back onto campus. So beyond that, the larger instructional purchases due to virtual learning and the resources required for that, along with our technology. Any questions? Very well, Katie, with your permission, I'll keep going. Okay, so budget time, as you all know, and I like to say that budget time is my favorite time of year, just because budgeting is a giant puzzle, and I love watching it come together. Everyone thinks I'm crazy for saying that. That excitement is stunted only slightly in that students are coming back next week, so that is where the majority of our focus has been. However, budget season is moving forward just a little slower than it has in years past. So typically we bring all of our budget supervisors or managers, principals, directors, administrators before the central office administrators to present and defend their budgets. We do that in January. We've given them through February to do that. Right now, their energies, while budgeting is extremely important, so is bringing back students to teach them things in person. So we will be going through the budgeting meetings in February. I met with a number of them prior to our winter break and even after winter break, doing one-on-one or one-on-two sessions with them, making sure that they're well-versed in the software and the philosophy, most importantly, and the context for budgeting, and making sure that equity is at the fore of that. And as typical in February, I will be bringing the first look at our revenues. I do expect those to not be extremely accurate at this point, but it will be our first look at where they will be, as well as perhaps some preliminary staffing recommendations and or suggestions. We will see about that as the month progresses. Any questions about our budgeting?
I was going to laugh, Chris, when you said budget time is your favorite time of year. I was like, isn't all budget time all year for you? So,
Yeah, it really is, actually.
so I appreciate that the process may be slightly slower this year. I think we're all in acknowledgement that this is not a typical year. We don't need to pretend like it is. So please focus on getting the kids back in safely next week. Any other comments, questions about finance? We can move into board communications then. As far as calendar of events is concerned, just wanted to update you all. We are still planning our follow-up with the MAP Center from the conversation that we had with Cynthia back in the fall, and had targeted the work session the beginning of March for that meeting. Roxana and I got some additional information from Cynthia today that the amount of time that we allocate in a work session probably isn't in itself sufficient. So want to, and Cynthia is doing some checking on her end, but potentially entertain the idea of the March 4th work session, and then also a March 8th, which would be that following Monday, a session, and probably needing to also dedicate time, some significant time, I think, at the April work session for the entire process of making meaning with our data. So again, Cynthia kind of left the meeting with us today saying, this looks decent on our end. If that works, you think on your end, I'll make sure it's okay. I'm just flagging those dates for our potential work. I think that if that does end up working out, we're going to need to devote some time to our February work session for figuring out who we want to include in our making meaning of our data conversation. So that is the primary calendar issue, other than communications forum, which has its own agenda item a little later on. Are there any other folks want to flag here?
Katie, did we or do we need to renew that MOU with the MAP Center?
We do, and you know, again, I acknowledge we're all living and working in a pandemic, so the just closing the loop has been a little bit slow with the MAP Center side of things. We have not yet received the fully updated MOU, but it is certainly the intention that that will quickly be signed and sent off. So yes. And I guess I'm realizing there isn't a specific spot for this too, but I do want to acknowledge that the Missouri legislature, some of it is back in session this week. And we know that there has been some very quick movement on several pieces of unfriendly to public education legislation. I think, just continuing to encourage the board to follow that. I think there could be some movement in the full Senate next week. So encourage our community members to inform themselves as well about what's going on with public education legislation.
Just along those lines, Katie, I just saw an email today about the legislative committee group that's meeting, I guess, in the Mid-County area, Webster, Kirkwood, Maplewood, a few others, and they've turned that into a Zoom meeting, I guess, in the mornings. And given this legislation that has come out recently, I don't know, Roxana, have you heard anything more about formal opposition and our meetings like that? Things that we should try to work, if we can, some of us work into our calendars to attend.
Yes, I've asked Kat to at least put them on the board calendar there for you, so you know when they are with the Zoom link, so that if you're able and willing, that would be very, very helpful. There is quite a stack of proposed legislation. Much of it is probably came out of the Senate committee today. And I know you're all aware of that, but there are equally concerning bills behind it. So I expect to see more. And so I think this year would be very, very important for all of us to pay attention to what's going on. They're moving things very quickly. They're consolidating lots of things, and we're going to have to be hyper diligent and aware of what's happening at the legislative level.
And I think in our area, our elected representatives are very much, champions of public education, although they are new, at least to their roles, as state reps and in the Senate, I guess. Not that they need a ton of help and don't understand the issues, but, I think in the past at least those meetings have brought out some more seasoned, legislators and things like that. So I don't know, whatever we can do to push more for that representation.
I know they appreciate hearing your voices, and they appreciate hearing the stories of how public education works, and they appreciate hearing direct stories of the harmful pieces that are in the bill, so that they have talking points in terms of rebuttal. So.
Yeah, and probably the other thing that I'm not seeing on the board calendar, and I can't remember if I've seen it in email, is if there's going to be a legislative day from MSBA. Again, I don't know if that would be in person, or some of these days in the Capitol are going virtual this year as well. So if Kat could check in and see if if that's scheduled a certain day, and see if we can send some representation. Probably
Okay.
makes sense this year.
I haven't seen it yet, but we'll check.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'll move on then to board filing. We have officially received 3 candidates who have filed and have been submitted to the Board of Elections this week. We are sad that Director Rob is retiring from the board this year, but certainly, we'll look forward to opportunities for more information on our candidates. SSD. I was in a work session with y'all in December when that board met, but there is the link to the meeting, and continuing obviously to work closely with that team on the supports that our students need. Move on to Joe's Place update. Anything to report there, team?
We do have a meeting scheduled this coming Monday, the 25th. So that'll be our first meeting for the year. So I think everyone is looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we had some schedule conflicts, but at this point, the 25th is the scheduled date for our next meeting.
All right. And then our last item is Comms Forum. Roxana and Wes and I met last Friday to discuss the Comms Forum revival. We are acknowledging in the attachments here that even folks like me who've been on the board a while but didn't really know all the history of Comms Forum had some things to learn about where this originated from and kind of how it evolved. And we recognized that we were out of compliance with our own procedure, or with our own, policy, in this endeavor. So have had some initial conversations about revising the policy to speak more to where we're at right now as a district, and to potentially solicit input from our CBTF team on improving that policy and obviously having it reflect both our current state and our aspirations for that work. And would ideally like to schedule a comms forum for February 22nd. I think it has been, it was our most recent practice that all but board members attended. It does indicate in the policy that all board members are invited, but it's not, mandatory. So, if that date doesn't work on your calendar, that's okay. But please do check and see if that's an opportunity to participate. And we'll seek to kind of elevate the conversation to, I know we have always wrestled, or not always, in the more recent past, we had wrestled with some of the topics coming to comms forum being things that could maybe be addressed in other venues, such as just orientations for staff or things like that. But really wanting to kind of reorient comms forum to an opportunity to be thinking longer term, big picture, and get some conversation with our on the ground staff who can, really help us see some new opportunities, some new challenges that we might be facing. Roxana or Wes, anything else to add about our conversation or any questions from the rest of the board?
I think you summed that up fairly well. I think that it is time for a conversation, and we do want to amend that policy. So we'll be soliciting feedback at the CBTF meeting next Wednesday. Would love for all of you to take a look at it as well. The policy, just to frame the history briefly, I think started as comm forum as an opportunity to talk with staff members, with CBTF operating as needed off of that. But as time wore on, CBTF has become the committee that has really worked with compensation and benefits and staff life kinds of questions, and that the larger, bigger picture kinds of conversations had stopped happening, which is why I think the group suggested that it be used as needed. And that system that we have right now works really well too. So I think we just need to amend the policy to reflect the system that we intend to run. But I do think comm forum has a place. And so looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Certainly, yeah, we'll look forward to being able to hear directly from a number of staff representatives later in February. Great. We will move on then to action items. Can I have a motion on the policy DK purchasing procedure?
I move to adopt board policy DK as modified.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Nikki. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Bus lease.
Move to approve the bus lease as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Wes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. AmeriGas agreement.
Move to approve the AmeriGas propane supply agreement as presented.
I'll
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Wes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Winter sports recommendation.
Well, it's a foregone conclusion, so I'll make the motion. So I move to approve the 2020-2021 winter athletic competitions as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Ralph. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no.
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 All right, motion does not pass. Motion to enter executive session.
Give me just a moment, please. I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on January 21st, 2021 for the following specific reasons: personnel matters, identifiable student matters.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Nikki. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Board, I think we can convene immediately into executive session. Does that work? All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.